Rachel Zegler and the Walt Disney Company might be wishing on a wishing well, but things are not well for Snow White. And now the ultimate business poison apple is on the way. We call it apathy. It turns out that people are not turning out anymore for the trailers that, well, have been shown the door. Today we'll tell you what's going on and why the dislikes are starting to wane, and yet that's not good for a Disney gone insane. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pro Channel. We, as ever, are so happy to have you with us. Happy New Year, everybody. We hope that your 2025 is going to be the best year ever. And a reminder, folks, that yes, you are just the type of person to get out there and make the world into something that it could be. Go out there and make the world better. We would appreciate it indeed. Folks, as we get ready to get started, click the like button. And here we go. Rachel Zegler Snow White trailer dislike ratios show an alarming trend that points to Disney disaster. This is out of That Part Place, the website that if you are not yet bookmarked, well, you should be. Marvin Montanaro is our author here, and here's what it says. Disney's trailers for its upcoming live-action Snow White remake starring troubled and controversial Hollywood star Rachel Zegler have all received insane dislike ratios on YouTube. But when looks at the three videos side by side, a trend emergifies that should be alarming for the brass at Disney. And yes, folks, do not forget that the Snow White trailers, two of them at least, have managed to put themselves in what we would say is the upper echelon of YouTube videos ever disliked to such a degree. In fact, the Snow White trailer, the second one, may be the highest disliked YouTube video ever in the post-hidden dislike era. Wowza. Most notably, each subsequent Snow White trailer has received fewer views and interactions than the one before it, showcasing a growing apathy among the movie-going public. Now, this is the exclusive part of what That Part Place is reporting, and we love it that Marvin has done the research here. It turns out that every time Disney releases a trailer, less people are interested. Now, you might have thought that the dislike ratios were the worst thing that could happen, but that's not actually true, because it turns out that if you have people watching en masse, if you have a huge amount of schadenfreude occurring, that can sometimes portend to people going to the movie theaters simply to see how bad it can be. In other words, you can get an economic rubbernecking of positivity. Well, not positivity in terms of enjoying it, but positivity in terms of making money because people want to go see the roadkill. But that is not apparently what is happening with Snow White. Instead, they're getting a double dose, and this is what we call the poison apple. It's a twofer. When you have people disliking your product to a huge degree, but also they're tuning you out to a large degree, declining interest, while still you are whining that they won't like what you're putting out? Well, that's the double dose of wham that Disney is looking to have in 2025 in March.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
No, it does get worse, folks. I just want to tell you this. And, we try to be very forthright about Disney. People say that we're a negative channel, and I say, well, Disney dropped something like 50% of its value in 3 years, so we have to be negative because we want them to do better. But we try to be forthright with our analytics of Disney. I'm here to tell you that I think Lilo and Stitch is going to do just fine. In fact, I think it'll be a hit coming out in May around Labor Day in 2025. I also think that Zootopia 2 and Avatar are going to do fantastic. In fact, Avatar might be the biggest blockbuster movie at the box office in 2025. Go Disney, right? But Disney might also have the most flops they've ever had in a single year, and Snow White could be not the first of it because, well, there's not Captain America 4, but it would definitely be the follow-up, the runner-up, and it could be glorious. Not in a good way. The first trailer garnered an impressive 11 million views rapidly, but interest did not sustain over time. It eventually accumulated 1.5 million viewer interactions on YouTube, composed of 1.4 million dislikes and just 100,000 likes. And yet somehow that still was not the highest dislike ratio that we covered earlier in the last few months. Shortly after the release of this trailer, Zegler went on social media and thanked the audience for all the views before ending her message with a very divisive statement about the Middle East. Wowza. After that, the second trailer saw a decrease in views, garnering only 6.7 million. The post received 883,000 interactions. Of those, 849,000 were dislikes and only 34,000 likes. Now, we covered this and we told you that placed the second Snow White trailer in the category of largest dislike ratio of any video basically ever, but definitely of the post YouTube hiding the dislike button. And of course, we're only considering videos that have a substantial viewership. So maybe 50,000 views or more, because really, if we were to go down and find videos that have like 20 total views and it's 10 to 0, negative to nobody liked it, that's not really fair, because we're talking about a completely different category of video versus major releases from companies. Zegler, of course, after that, had the full-blown meltdown declaring that President Donald Trump and his supporters should never know peace. So she's been a piece of joy for Disney. But here's where we get to the apathy part. Here's where we get to Disney struggling in a way that they were hoping they would not. Because again, had they managed to maintain at least buzz about the film, perhaps people would have gone to see it just to see how bad it could be. But the trend is pointing towards the worst case scenario. It's pointing towards the storm of all storms, where people both dislike it and don't care. And I think that Zegler has pushed this into the don't care category. By the way, the real victim in all this is not Disney, because Disney chose Rachel Zegler. And we know the background of this. We know that Disney likely chose Zegler because they wanted someone who is divisive. So I have no feelings of remorse for Disney. I have no sympathies for them right now. The victim of all of this is Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot, who was offered a major role for a Disney movie and probably had no idea that it was going to be used as a vehicle for hate. And Gal Gadot, who has posted such beautiful and kind and wonderful things about her overcoming health struggles with a pregnancy, we're wishing Gal Gadot the best. Honestly, she should have been Snow White. On Christmas Day, Disney released a sneak peek musical video featuring Zegler singing the film's original song, Waiting on a Wish. This was essentially a veiled third trailer. The response has been overwhelmingly negative again. The video has amassed only 218,000 views over 6 days, accompanied by 30,000 plus interactions. Of these, 27,000 are dislikes compared with 3,700 likes as of this writing. In other words, the viewership, the interest levels are dropping significantly. The dislike ratio remains the same. And of course, Waiting on a Wish is this movie's version of I'm Dreaming or Wishing Well or whatever, but they cannot talk about her wanting to be with a prince because you're not allowed to dream of marriage anymore, especially not if you're a woman, not in the modern Disney era. Although that might be changing because Disney may be learning from the mistakes, but they still have 2 years of pipeline stuff that they have to pump out that was all developed at a time when Disney expected the political landscape would look completely different than it does today. Continuing on, unlike typical films that generate buzz and anticipation leading up to the release, Snow White appears to be losing traction, with audiences no longer even motivated to engage in hate watching. True indeed. Our previous coverage detailed Zegler's tumultuous tenure since her casting, marked by a series of public missteps that have alienated fans. And it is true that Zegler has never had a box office win, at least not one that you could say, well, it's an unmitigated success. The closest she comes is Hunger Games. But her appearance in that Hunger Games movie, despite the fact that movie ticket prices have inflated at a rate higher than historic inflation, even despite all that, her Hunger Games movie comes in as the lowest performing at the box office. And just by default, it should be the highest, yet it's the lowest. The other films that she's done, they've all been financial failures as best we can tell. And Y2K, the most recent film she did, was one of the absolute worst. We have never seen a major star be in a movie that cratered that hard, perhaps since Gigli. Sorry, Jennifer Lopez, we're bringing it up. It was awful. Now, folks, we decided to go a little bit deeper even than the article, although the article is fantastic, and we wish that you will check that out on That Park Place. We're not going to read the rest of it because I want to show you this. Let's go to the hard data. We go over to Google Trends now. And here at Google Trends, we are just searching for Snow White. And we are searching for Snow White in the way that will give us the most broad ability to be the most kind to Disney. We're not searching for Snow White the movie. We're not searching for Snow White the animated movie. We're searching just Snow White. Anything literally, any search for Snow White will pull up these numbers. If it was searched on Google, here it is. And this is what we're talking about. Now, we had to preface all of this by telling you what's in the article, because otherwise you would look at this and say, well, what is this chart and why do we care? Well, take a look, folks. What you can see here is you can see the spikes when Snow White released the trailers, right? However, part of those spikes is coming from people talking about how bad the trailer is, articles on how bad the trailer is, people searching for YouTube channels such as this to analyze the trailer. It does not negate the fact that the trailers have been drawing less interest, and you can see that with the most recent spike. But at the same time, this really gives you the full spectrum of what's happening. Pay attention to this, though. As a movie nears its release, what we typically see when we're looking at Google Trends, which is a chart that covers all the times people search for that item on Google's search engine, what we typically see is we see an exponentially rising chart as we get closer to the release of the film. Because as the film begins to enter into the public interest sphere, and people begin to talk about it, and they begin to get excited, and the marketing campaign ramps up, you see an exponentially increasing, and then the movie releases, and you get the collapse as people go see it. They like it, they love it, but then they stop talking about it after a few days. So you see a steep drop, second weekend gets a little bump, and then that's it. Because the whole thing was to build up anticipation for the big day. Well, if we look at Snow White right here, going all the way back to October 1st, this is very barely increasing in any degree of search engine queries. In fact, if you look at the 50 line right here, which is halfway, if you look at that 50 line, we've been hovering around this. I mean, we've edged above it in December since about November 22nd. It's been slightly above it holding, but it's not a drastic change. What we should be seeing is a huge slope upward as the buildup begins. That's not happening. And so what that seems to indicate is that at best, Disney has tepid interest that is holding steady. But what you've got to ask yourself again, the reason I brought up the fact that Google's search is showing us all the people looking for videos such as this, what you've got to consider is how many of these searches are happening based on people wanting to know what has Rachel Zegler done today to destroy her career. And that is a legitimate part of what's happening with these searches. That's why when we go back to that Park Place and we see that the viewership on the trailers have been dropping, that's simultaneously true. Both of these things are true. People are checking to see what nutty, zany thing Zegler's up to today, as well as tuning out of the Snow White trailers because the fun is gone out of going and seeing what, this train wreck looks like. And it is truly a train wreck. Again, folks, Poison Apple, it's two parts. It's not just dislikes. It's not just being turned away. It's also the apathy that's on the way. This could put Snow White, by the way, in the same kind of category as Star Wars, and that is not something that Disney needs. Although Star Wars is a far worse thing to have in that kind of grouping, Snow White being there definitely is a condemnation of the modern Disney attempt to deconstruct their original legacy items, and it could actually be the end of it because it's so poorly received now that there's no way out for Disney to say that there is a sustainable, viable model to go forward with this. Instead, it could actually be the end of the woke live action retellings. There's some things still in the pipeline, so I can't guarantee it, but this is so bad, Disney may have had absolutely enough. And also, probably the final nail in Zegler's career for the foreseeable future, she's likely to head to Broadway because the path for her at the movie business is not broad anymore in any way. Folks, help us send this out. Click the like button, share, subscribe, click it and stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. We want to thank you, everybody out there, for a wonderful, amazing 2024. We saw over 100,000 subscribers added to this channel. Now at just about 150,000, I think we'll have to do a celebration at some point for that. Thank you so much. If you are new to the channel and just finding us, We try to tell you what's going on in entertainment. We do it honestly, but we always give positive vibes, even if the haters say we do not. We would love to have your subscription. Consider joining today. Folks, as you're on your way out there, we encourage you, drop a comment down below. Let us know, will you be going to see Snow White? Or will you say, no, Pro, I think I'm all right. I don't want to see what this is. I'll just watch these videos instead. Let us know, because some of you out there, you want to go and see just how bad it can be. It might be really bad. Will the Barbie crowd, though, show up at the last minute and save the day? There's a demographic out there, and we're not completely discounting them. There's a 1% chance, teeny tiny, but there's a 1% chance that the Barbie crowd comes out. That's women who have a cause, and they watch it over and over and over. And, well, we're not discounting that could happen. It's just exceedingly unlikely based on what we're seeing with Google Trends. All right, folks, that's the end of this video. Again, Happy New Year. Let's get started. Let's make it great. And until the next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Huh. Hey, Floral. I just wanted to let you know I have a New Year's resolution.
Okay.
Although, I don't want to say it. It might be like a wish. If I speak it, I'll break it.
Usually a resolution is spoken out loud so you can be held accountable to it. Like, my resolution is to go to thatparkplace.com and be ready to see its new facelift, and to make sure I'm always subscribed to guys like Jonas and Pro, Culture Casino, Lorena Creole, John Trent, all of them.
Well, I actually got Slade Wilson to also make a resolution.
What's that?
I'd get in too much trouble if I repeated it. He took it way further than I feel comfortable repeating.
Well, that's probably a good call. But, what's yours?
It's not to say anything mean about Jonas.
How do you plan to do that? You're an idiot.